Good evening and welcome. I'm Megan Rust, Interpretation Director here at the Frist Art Museum. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. As is our custom here at the Frist, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. The Frist Art Museum sits on land that the Cherokee and Shawnee Native peoples, elders, and ancestors call their homeland. We acknowledge and pay respect to them and offer deep gratitude and respect to the land and water that support us. We're thrilled to be joined by Shahpour Pouyan, art historian and critic Media Farzine, for tonight's conversation with our curator-at-large, Trinita Kennedy, about the exhibition Winter in Paradise. Winter in Paradise is on view in our Gordon Contemporary Artist Projects Gallery until August 25th. I hope you'll take some time to see this incredibly moving exhibition tonight if you haven't seen it already. We are open until 8. Please take a moment to silence your mobile devices and take a look around to find your nearest emergency exit while I gratefully acknowledge our supporters of the exhibition. Winter in Paradise is supported in part by the Ellsworth Kelly Award, made possible by the Ellsworth Kelly Foundation and the Foundation for Contemporary Arts. Additional support is provided by Blevins Inc., Clay Blevins, the Gordon Cap Gallery Fund, and the Friends of Contemporary Art. And as always, we're grateful for the continued operating support from the Frist Foundation, Metro Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the National Endowment for the Arts. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to Trinita Kennedy. Please join me in welcoming her.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. It's so wonderful to see many old friends and also new faces. I'm looking forward to the conversation with Shahpour and Media tonight. But before our dialogue begins, I'd like to introduce the exhibition and our speakers. Winter in Paradise explores Shahpour's use of architecture, especially towers and domes, as a vessel for his ideas. Spanning the past decade of the artist's career, the exhibition features 3 installations: Monday Recollections of the Macarnas Dome, We Owe This Considerable Land to the Horizon Line, and Winter in Paradise. Ceramics are the artist's primary medium, and there are nearly 30 examples on view. The exhibition also includes drawings and an ambitious new virtual reality installation, The Artist's First. The show was several years in the making, and a fortuitous grant in the form of the Ellsworth Kelly Award from the Foundation for Contemporary Arts made the creation of the VR installation possible. I've admired and followed Shahpour's work for many years. In April 2020, he invited me to a Zoom conversation to learn more about his art, and we met on one of the quietest and most uncertain days of the COVID pandemic. That conversation planted the seed for this exhibition, and it is gratifying to me that something so beautiful came out of that dark time. Over the past few years, I've had so many discussions with the artist, and every one of them opened my eyes to new ways of looking at the world. I'm excited that all of you will also have the opportunity to listen to Shahpour talk about his art and ideas, and that Media, another exquisite thinker, is with us too. So I'd now like to say a few things about our guests. Shahpour Pouyan is an internationally renowned artist who, despite not being mid-career yet, has seen his work acquired by many major museums, including the British Museum, Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the Victoria and Albert Museum. He was born in Isfahan, Iran in 1979, and later pursued a multidisciplinary education in Tehran that included the study of mathematics, painting, philosophy, and physics. He holds 2 MFA degrees, one from the Tehran University of Art and another from Pratt Institute in New York. He is the recipient of many awards and recently was the Middle East Ceramics Fellow at the V&A and a fellow at the Kenneth Armitage Foundation in London. Winter in Paradise is the largest solo museum exhibition to date for the artist, who currently lives and works in London and Tehran. Medya Farzin is a writer, curator, and art historian living in New York. She teaches at the School of Visual Arts and the Sotheby's Institute of Art and serves on the board of Apex Art. Of her many publications, I would like to highlight 3 catalog essays. The first is The Mist of Time on the historic turn in contemporary Iranian art in the catalog to the 2015 exhibition Global Local 1960 to 2015, 6 artists from Iran, which was shown at the Gray Art Gallery in New York and included Shahpour Pouyan's work. The second is Unpeopled, Cosmopolitan Figurations in Recent Painting in Mark Scala's catalog to the 2018 Frist Art Museum exhibition, Chaos and Awe, Painting from the 21st Century. And third is The Highest of Skies in the catalog to Sky High is My Place, an exhibition in Belgium in 2022 with one of Shahpour's major installations. Shahpour and Medya met in 2015, around the time when he was working on the memory drawings of Monday Recollections of the Muqarnas Dome, which are at the start of our exhibition. She has many significant insights into the artist's work, and I'm happy that we have this occasion to welcome her back to the Frist tonight. In this conversation, we will talk about each of the 3 installations in the exhibition. But first, we will set the stage by talking about Shahpour's early years in Iran and also highlight a pivotal moment in the artist's career when clay became his primary medium. All right, I am now going to switch to the couch and all right, everybody. All right, so let's begin in Isfahan, which is where Shahpour was born. And it is one of the most beautiful cities in Iran, if not the most beautiful cities. Can you talk about the role of your childhood in Isfahan in relation to your work today?
In relation to my works, I'm not sure how much is like we can just say that is visible there, but I remember as a child. I mean, I grew up during the 8 years Iran-Iraq war, and it wasn't that much like care for I think children. Like we had primary school, but still I remember the most fun part of my childhood was when my mom used to take me to these all historical sites, such as this mosque, and I was just wandering around, and those are the images that they are not very clear, but I remember all the mosques, all the palaces, and it was quite touristic even during the war. And later I can see it how these forms came to my art and everything, but that's my connection to that heritage, I think. Yeah.
So yes, it's a beautiful city that's full of domes and very interesting architecture. So architecture has been a long time interest of yours. And one of the things that I think is so interesting is that starting when you're a teenager, you would take road trips throughout Iran. Can you talk about some of the things that you were looking for and kind of how some of those ideas continue in your work now?
Just to give a background, I was 6 or 7, and then it was this really difficult time of the war when there was this um, bombing campaigns of Iraq that they were just literally just bombing all the major cities in Iran. And I remember my family, we moved to Tehran. It was a little bit more safe in this regard. And then I remember for me it was such a shock to go into Tehran, because in contrast to Isfahan, which has 2,000 years history and amazing. It used to be the capital of the Persian Empire in several different dynasties, and it's full of beautiful architecture. Tehran is an ugly city. It's a modern, ugly hell. And I remember I was there and I was like, and it's polluted. I mean, the air was terrible, traffic, everything. And yeah, so, and I remember it was such a shock for me. And then, so I was in Tehran, and then later when I went to university, I had my first travels out of Tehran and just seeing these historical remains, and it was like a flashback to my childhood and the amazing relationship to the architecture in that pre-modern Iranian practice. And then I fell in love with this new form of something that I missed it at some point. And then that was the start of my travels around the country, and I don't know, 1,000 miles of driving all over the country and just visiting historical sites.
So you would get into a car and kind of, in a lot of ways, you would kind of educate yourself or find different sites that interest you.
Yeah.
You have identified this tower as one of the most important ones that you've seen in Iran. What is it that you seem to be drawn often to medieval architecture, but not exclusively medieval architecture. But as I was looking through some of your sources, they're often from the 11th century. And
something about this specific building here is the tallest brick tower in the world. Half of this tower is under the floor. So, and then they made this hills almost to half of the size of the tower. And this used to be a grave. And the coffin of the king was suspended by chains from the ceiling. I mean, how mad you have to be to design this, grave, right? And this is a dynasty from, if I'm not wrong, 8th century. And they've been so much involved in art and culture and anything else that they completely forgot about defending their borders and everything, and they completely collapsed but they left some of the most amazing architectural heritage in Iran, and this is one of them. I think it's about 70 meters. I don't know. I'm not sure. We're gonna make
how tall it is.
We can check again.
Well, this is Shahpour's photo, and when he sent it to me, I was like, "Why is it diagonal?" And I think it's really interesting. Actually, you were like, "I'm interested in the form."
Yes.
More than anything else.
Yeah.
So you have the top pointing toward, it's on the diagonal here.
And one thing I have to mention, on the ceiling, you can't see, but there is a door on the ceiling. It's like, why there is a door there? And they said that this is a symbolic door that his soul left to heaven or whatever. So I mean, this is so much meaning behind this architecture and craziness, so I love that. Yeah.
And so one of the things that I want to establish is that you, for several decades now, since you were
Mhm.
quite young, you've been building this kind of archive of forms and references. And it's really interesting to see some of these forms appear in your most recent work. So um, architecture is kind of this thread that goes through so many of the works in our exhibition, but also in your career. And this is a drawing from a sketchbook that you wanted to share with everyone. And do you remember around the time that you made this, approximately what year?
It was over 15 years ago when I did these sketches. So it's a sketchbook with over 50 different designs I did for buildings or domes and minaret and the connection they have. But I remember back then I was thinking about making something between a still life and a narrative connection between different architectures and buildings. And I started making all these designs and sketches. And that's it. I mean, I left it for almost 10 years, I think. I'm not sure. Yeah, 8 years maybe. And after 8 years, I always thinking about these works and these drawings. And then I developed the project we have in the main gallery here based on these sketches, which I made it like 8 years back then before the exhibition. So I wanted to show it as a reference point to how I started the works we have in the exhibition. So it was back then when I was in Iran, and sometimes you just have an idea or just some sketches, and you're gonna put it in a corner. You don't know when you're gonna bring it out of the of the drawer, and you're gonna use it for your next project. And this is one of them. Yeah.
And in many of your works, your sculptures are little architectural forms, but they're never just by themselves, right? They're always in a group. And so here you're kind of thinking about the relationship of one form to another. And I think for those of us who worked on the installation of your exhibition, it was intriguing to think about or to watch you arrange the sculptures and to decide where to place them. Because until the installation, we only had a very vague notion of how we were going to put them on the platforms, and you kind of played with them. And so that was an important part of the process too.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so this slide shows you in Iran right before you came to the United States. Do you want to identify for everyone who you are in the photo?
I mean, the guy in green in the corner. Yeah. And I thought that is good to have this image to just give a little bit context about the art scene in Tehran back then. And we had a lot of gatherings. This is an example of one of the sittings we had in the gallery, and speaking about the art and about the exhibitions. And there's something about Iran, and it's that uncertainty that we have always in any aspects of life. And when I looked to this image, I was wondering how many of these people are still in Iran, how many of them practicing art, and where are they, and which countries they live. Are they in Iran, and what happened to the gallery, and many other things. But it was one of the last, I think maybe it's the last time I had a presence in a gallery in Iran. So I think, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's kind of illustrates the very vibrant art scene when you were an art student in Tehran. In 2010, you moved to New York, where you pursued an MFA at Pratt Institute. And it was towards the end of your time there that you saw a flyer posted that advertised pottery as therapeutic for people with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mhm.
And for you, that was kind of a light bulb moment, right?
Yeah.
It was something that kind of sparked a new direction in your work,
Mhm.
which is, you know, it was actually as you were leaving Pratt that you
Mhm.
saw this.
Yeah.
So, do you want to tell them about the work that came out of that experience of seeing the flyer?
The funny thing was that I saw a flyer about PTSD. I went to get a flu shot, and then I saw this flyer, PTSD, and I never heard before. So I didn't know what is PTSD. And I was reading that, and I remember I was like, oh, I have it, obviously, you know, just because it was mentioning if you had a traumatic experience in your life, and like, yeah, 8 years in war, yeah, cool. I mean, what else? Obviously, I had it, but then the funny, I mean, it was ridiculous because it mentioned you're gonna take medication, and then you can also do pottery, and you're gonna be fine. And like after a couple of weeks, I was like, oh, sure, yeah. And for me, I was like, oh, what a dumb thing. Okay, I'm gonna do that. You know, just what the stuff make me so stressed and I mean, traumatized, and that was the idea. And I was like, maybe I should work with clay. And obviously, university, you're not gonna learn anything. And so I finished Pratt. I moved to San Jose, and I found these two Chinese ceramists, and they helped me to to learn to practice ceramics, and that was amazing. And like, so my approach to clay was more like, oh, this is doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's just, I mean, let's try it, as not that I believe it's gonna fix anything in me. But then I just hooked. And I was like, oh, this is so great. And after that, I dropped paintings, and I don't paint that much. And I started enjoying working with clay, and it is therapeutic. And so, yeah. And PTSD, I think everything about the PTSD is about war, about missiles, about many other matters that is crazy about us humans.
And so one of the things that we're seeing here is that when Shahpour wants to pursue an idea, the medium kind of you work in a lot of different media, but when you want to learn something new, you often seek out master craftsmen. And here you are learning from some Chinese craftsmen, and you picked it up so quickly that they didn't believe you that you had never done it before. So you're able to kind of master an art form very quickly, and that's something that I think is really impressive.
Yeah, I think that, yes,
There you are again in the San Jose ceramic studio. All right. And so now I think we've kind of laid the groundwork for at least some of the themes in the exhibition, and given you some background on Shahpour's life. And now I think we can really dive into the show and look at the 3 installations. Do you want to be the driver?
Can people hear me? Is this a good distance? Cool. So I'm going to take over the interrogation now. Let's see. Oh, not that, this. So yeah, let's just start with you talking about this first room of the exhibition, Monday Recollections of the Montparnasse Dome. We have drawings on the wall, we have sculptures in the middle on the platform, and they're related, they're the same project. Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration and how it happened and when it happened and the stages?
Mm-hmm. Well, 2014, I remember it was the Halloween night, and I was supposed to go to see Pino Bosch company in BAM. And then, I remember my friend, she texted me or she called me, I don't remember, but she said like, do you remember you had this beautiful photo of the tower in Iraq in your studio? And I said, yeah, I remember, yeah. And then she said, oh, well, ISIS destroyed it and they blown it up. And I remember I was like, yeah, I don't think it's correct. And then she sent me a link to hyperallergic. Yeah,
There was a pic-
hyperallergic. Yeah,
Mhm,
oh yeah. And then I saw that no, that's correct. So they basically they just destroy it. And
So this is the mosque. It's the Imam Dur Mausoleum in
yeah,
present-day Iraq.
yeah, it's a crazy beautiful tomb, and I mean, what an odd building, right? I mean, the form is amazing, and then it doesn't look like anything else, right? Is not. I like the weirdness of the building, and I always wanted to go and visit it, and it was so heartbreaking for me that they destroyed it. And I remember I literally cried for this building. And the building that is not part of Iran is completely a heritage of the neighbor country. And we've been 8 years in war with them, and still I feel like what a loss for humanity that we just what we do to each other. I mean, the fact that we have this um, campaign of destruction of anything of the history of a nation, and it was really hard for me. And I remember, so I dropped the phone and I'm just walking to go to watch the play, the dance. It was a dance piece. I remember I'm just walking and just seeing people's face, and there was this very saddening time for me that you can't share the loss, and then I mean, and then I remember I was trying to describe the shape of the building to my friends, and it was really difficult to bring it in words and just say the shape. I mean, how can you describe this building, right? It's just such a weird form, and you can't even categorize it as Islamic, as Iranian, as uh, yeah. And then there is a weird dome and form which could be even more like Asian, but anyway, I was like, okay, I'm trying to memorize the details of the building and try to do a drawing from my memory every Monday morning. And I don't know why I started this project. It was more like
These are some of the drawings.
yes. So every Monday so I never looked to the image I had in my studio. I put it in a box and I started making one drawing every Monday. And I wouldn't look to the previous drawings. So just keep going without knowing how many drawings I did, and until I got tired. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm somehow it's like a morning that is over, it's like I'm done, I'm tired. Yeah.
I mean, looking at the drawings, I'm struck by how some of them have very different details from each other. The one on the right has a completely different pattern than the one in the middle. And then with the one on the left, you're looking at a different angle altogether. So were you actually trying to see which one was accurate, or are you playing off of this and moving into your own kind of version of it already?
So at the beginning, I was trying to remember the building, right? And very soon I realized that I'm just making drawings very similar to each other, and I got bored. I was like, okay, maybe I should just change it. And I see, so somehow, in your,
Or this is the late one.
yeah, this is the last one. Yeah. It was like half the way I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Because I couldn't remember the details, the decorations. I mean, in some of them, there are writings on the facade of the building, and in some of them, there are geometrical patterns. So I couldn't remember which one is correct anymore. And I'm like, I was like, yeah, I did enough. Yeah.
And then after you did these drawings, you created the ceramic kind of
Mm.
response to the drawings. Tell us about that.
I think I just there was something about the three-dimensionality of this building that even the drawing wouldn't satisfy me in this regard. I don't know why, but I felt like it's interesting to see it in a form of ceramic. However, the original building was a massive piece of ceramic because it was brick. So like, why not? I would try to make it in ceramic. And then I try to make it very strong and like very solid that it can survive. So it could be a form of time capsule that we can, I mean, I can just put it somewhere and it could be, you know, it could survive forever. And also I thought a lot about Tower of Babel and how is all the images we have is, you know, it just these imaginations of the perfect tower that is supposed to be, and none of them representing what it might be if it ever built. So I got more excited by the idea of changing it to something else. So always I think the myth, the story is much better than the historic events. So I think all the heroes are quite boring in contrast to this story. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I feel like a lot of your work takes the architecture as a point of departure and then enters into the realm of speculation, alternate histories, what would happen if. And I thought it was interesting to think about how you relate to the idea of PTSD, not as something that heals you, but almost as like a way to make these slightly traumatized objects. Like the trauma, the loss almost exists in the work. It's not that you've healed yourself, but you found a way to give it a kind of presence. So you also are dealing with a kind of speculation or alternative history in this project, which is in the next room. We owe this considerable land to the horizon line, which is a series of ceramics. Do you want to tell us about the works, the motivation for the project, and also this particular version of it?
this oh, I remember when I was working on this project, uh, I just came back from Rome and then had such a amazing tour of all the historical site there. And then I was thinking about a landscape of a place that is quite dystopian, like the place that's supposed to be a statement of the failed state. And I look to the brutal architecture, Islamic architecture, Iranian architecture, and fascist architecture, and somehow I wanted to bring them together. And I remember I was thinking about the idea of how a capital, this dystopian capital, should look like. And there are different buildings, such as, you know, watchtowers, domes, many different things there that I can bring them to this landscape. So the whole idea was how I can make all these remarks of a city. And but then I remember back then I was reading this book, My Name is Red, by Orhan Pamuk, which is about the complexity of what we try to achieve as people, especially regarding democracy and freedom, and then how it's so quick to lose everything. And it's about building and the power of destruction. And then I thought about a city that looks to the west and the doors are all from the east. So there is a very suspicious look to the to the west. And I remember back then was the constitutional election in Turkey, and then all the rules used to change and everything. And that was the whole idea. How can I make something as a suffocating landscape of the promise that never came true? And it's beautiful, it's monumental, but at the same time is suffocating, I guess.
And so the inspiration of the influence of fascist architecture combined with the other ones is giving it kind of sinister quality.
Yes, yeah.
In some
yeah.
of these works. This one. So in this one, we actually see the roots of the drawing you showed us from 10
Yes.
years ago with the buttress kind of adapted to this dome, which doesn't typically have
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, so for this specific piece, as we saw that drawing, so the drawing is 8 years before this piece to get the shape of ceramic. And I remember I was like trying to understand what I was looking for in that drawings. And then when I planned this piece, I remember I was trying to see the connection between uselessness and monument, and also how can I explain it in architectural vocabulary? So the most stable, strong piece of design in architecture is a dome. If you make a dome and just leave it on the floor, it can survive forever. You don't need to do anything. And then I thought that when you have a wall, especially in terms of Gothic architecture, you're going to add buttresses to keep them standing, because without that, they're going to fly. So the most unnecessary thing is adding buttresses to a dome. It's like it's like a ultra conservatism. Like it's just too much that's going to destroy everything. And I was like, oh, that's such a funny, stupid thing. Let's do that. Like, how can I just bring it together? So, and each one of the works in this installation, they have the same type of play with the different ideas, and that's about this piece.
There are lots of different influences visually,
Yeah.
conceptually.
But it took me 8 years to figure out how I have to do that.
So let's move on to the final work we're going to talk about. This is your VR installation, Winter in Paradise. And there's also a lot to unpack here. So do you want to just describe it maybe? Because some people may not have had the chance to experience it yet.
So this is my first VR project I ever done. And the whole project started by I was sick and I was watching Andrei Tarkovsky movie, which is the best time to watch his movies. It's so slow, it takes forever to finish the movie, and I was like, yeah, so I should do that. And I remember it's Andrei Rublev is one of the best, I think, movies of the Russian cinema, and it's a scene that there is a church that burns, and the priest sitting in the church and talking to Andre, and then the snow falling into this burnt church, and then it was such a poetic moment that I remember I took a screenshot, and 10 years later I figured out this project because of, it's like I had basically, it's like you have a button and you want to make a code for it. Is I had that and I didn't know what they're gonna do with it. Yeah, it's just so weird. And I remember I felt like, oh, this is so fit with the idea of this poem by Akhavan Sales, is Winter, which is about this is a metaphoric poem about winter, a very cold winter, but then is about the political freeze in Iran in late 1950s after the coup led by America and the United Kingdom back then, supporting to actually removing the democratic elected prime minister who nationalized oil. So they came together, all of them, and that political freezness, the political coldness that is coming all the way until today, and the consequences of what happened to Iran and the hostile relationship between, you know, the world, Iran, and so many things. And I remember I imagined a mosque and the snow falling, and mosque in Iranian tradition is not just a place of worship, it's a place of is a type of heaven. It's very different from the character of, for example, a Gothic church that you go there and there's like demons all over and just, you know, like, and you have to be scared of hell, and you know, it's a very different character. It's everything, the forms are smooth and beautiful and like a representation of heaven. And I thought that how I can bring that heaven to this coldness. And then, yeah, all these ideas came together, and I realized that the only form I can bring this idea is VR, because that's the first time I'm dealing with architecture, but not the outdoor, but indoor. And that was the only medium I could use.
So just to look back at this again. So what you did is you recreated the interior of an actual existing mosque, the Jame Mosque of Ardistan, north of Esfahan. And it's a 5-minute experience. It begins to snow in this mosque. And what we see from that portal there, which we can't really get close to, is a huge cypress. Do you want to talk about the cypress?
Do I what?
The tree.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to talk about the tree?
Yes. So the cypress is it go back to this pre-Islamic Zoroastrian tradition of worshiping nature, which is one of the most important aspects of Iranian culture and civilization, which is about praising nature and trying to preserve and investing in nature. And cypress tree as a type of tree that is always green for season is a very important symbol of immortality in Iranian culture. And there is a belief that Zoroaster he planted about 2,000 cypress trees on the Iranian plateau, and the Abarku cypress is one of them. However, the tree is about 3,000 years old. So we don't really know how many trees, and we have many of these trees. And I remember I was thinking how this could be an alternative to this coldness. But and I like the contrast. I think the contrast between the you know, this.
It underlines the strangeness of the experience of snow in
Mm.
the space, for sure. So I'm also going to ask you technically about what was involved. I know you had collaborators. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, this is one of the first projects I work with Iranian artists, and I so much enjoyed that because so for this project, first of all, we needed to locate a right mosque for this project. And I had a couple of travels, you know, in Iran, and finally I found this amazing mosque in 1 hour out of Isfahan, in a very tiny shy city, which is a very quiet, you know, tiny town. And I remember when I went to the mosque, I was like, oh, this is exactly the location that I like to use. But then, so I talked to Siavash, the artist who helped me with constructing the whole 3D model. And then we got the images. And so, for example, this is how it looks like, the model we had, and a lot of details, but too much data that we have to bring. So this is a raw file we used to making this this interior space. And as you see, there's a lot of holes and places that we had to patch, we had to clean, we had to add to it. And then inside the mosque, we had a lot of, as you see, so many different things that we have to get rid of them, and cleaning the space and tied up everything. And
This
basically,
is what it actually looks like when
That
you're
was
there, because it's
exactly.
used for worship,
Yeah,
so they have
yeah,
carpets and
yeah.
everything. But that's not what you wanted.
Obviously, yeah, we didn't want any of these, so we had to rebuild the whole floor. And then, so we had to go to another mosques and other palaces and get examples of the type of bricks we want. And then we use them for the floor and for some of the walls. And all the corridors and the other rooms and everything, they all be based on other buildings. And basically, it was about 1 year, 8 months to reconstructing a new building. So what you see that we call it the Mosque of Ardestan. I mean, besides the dome, the rest is we just built it. There is nowhere there's nothing such as that. Yeah.
Which in a way loops back to your Monday recollection. It's kind of a
Yes, yeah.
memory of an early version of the mosque,
Yeah.
which you recreate.
Yeah. And
That's
it's
cool.
more like a stage. Like we have a theater stage, and we had to build it because the whole play is the snow, but we needed a stage for it. And we changed many times, like we add corridors. Before the tree, it used to be another mosque outside, and I was like, that doesn't work. Yeah. So a lot of changes. Yeah.
So this is in some ways also one of your most interactive works. Tell me a little bit about how you imagine the audience's role. What do you imagine the experience might be like, especially for someone not familiar with this type of architecture? What are your hopes for the work?
My hope is to have an experience. I don't know what I want them to experience, to be honest. I just want them to have experience, to be under the dome in other side of the world. And maybe there is an element of the coldness or desire or something that they never get a chance to experience. How many people in Nashville, they've been in Ardestan Mosque? I mean, I remember the first time I came here before we developing the idea for the VR, I was like walking around the city. I went to museum, I walked, in many streets and talking to many people, going to bars, drinking, just going around, and I wanted to see what I can bring here. And I had this idea, and I felt like this is a good thing to have it. But what I want my audience to get from this, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's even important what they're gonna get from the work, because that's such a personal experience. And I shouldn't expose what I want from the project that they should get.
So it's more a premise. It's an open-ended.
Yes.
And people will experience. But we actually have the chance to ask people if they've seen it, what they thought. So maybe this is a good moment to stop, and if there's a little time for Q&A. Yes, yeah.
Any questions?
This is not related to the virtual reality piece, but I'm just curious, when did you first recognize that you were an artist? And it's a twofold question, sorry, I'm being selfish, but what does the creative community look like in Iran?
Um, when I realized that I mean, as a child, I remember it's very weird. I was 4 years old, and every evening, every afternoon before like tea, like afternoon tea, I used to do one painting and one drawing or whatever in my uh, painting sketchbook. And I don't know why I used to do that, but it was like somehow because I knew after that we're gonna have cookies and tea. I don't know why, but I used to do that. And then I made so many of these notebooks that everyone in the family, they had one of my notebooks, and they didn't pay me anything. And like I was like, they got the book, all the sketchbooks. I don't have any of them now. Just terrible. But then but then when I went to to school, I studied math and physics, and I hated it. It was like the worst thing it could happen to me, just to study math and physics. And then I went to art school, and just suddenly I feel so much better because I feel like I'm not yeah, I don't know. I shouldn't call it, but yeah, I feel like okay, I can do something good. Yeah. How is the art scene in Tehran? That was your question. How is the art scene in Tehran? What do you think? Because Media was in Tehran just a month ago.
Yeah, it's funny, we never met in Tehran, although we were both there and we went to university there. I think it's very vibrant. I think that picture is a good one. I remember, so there's one museum of contemporary art in Tehran, and we went to everything. We were like always there. If it was a conference on tile work, we went. If it was postmodernism, we went. If it was something we didn't know about, we went. And so because there wasn't a lot of spaces, there was a lot of desire to be a community. And that's something that I really like think back on fondly, because now I hardly see the people that I consider my peers, like so few and far between. So I think that in terms of showing up for things, in terms of creating connections with peers, with teachers, it's a very vibrant scene. But it is difficult because there aren't a lot of opportunities, there aren't a lot of connections, there aren't a lot of resources. But I could see the sort of formative influence of a lot of that in your work too.
I think the art scene in Tehran is a lot of experimental things happening. A lot of experiments, and at the same time, I think it's a lot of resistance. It's just I think is interesting because is less guided. For example, in terms of ceramics, I have to say something that you can't buy glaze in Iran. You have to make your own glaze. There is not, because of the sanctions, no one have access to glaze. You can buy glazes. Like if you want to import glazes from any companies, you can't do that. So basically, everyone who makes ceramics in Iran, they're mixing their own glaze. And it's such a, imagine how make your job much more difficult to make your own glaze, because you can, like, if you want to make a very simple white glaze, you can't buy it. There's nowhere. And if you buy it this month, next month the white is pink. Just like so basically everyone, they just passing recipes to each other, and just everyone, they make their own things. So it's much more creative, but at the same time, like I feel many of these young artists, as I did back in the day, we have to invent the wheel every day. And it's like you wake up every day, and then you have to look for material, you have to look for a place to show your art. Is exhausting. Yeah. But so much talent. I never seen this much talent. I've been in New York, I've been in many other cities. It's amazing the amount of aim to make changes, to express themselves, and It's not an art industry, but is art there, which is amazing. Yeah.
Well, hi, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Nashville. And for congratulations on a wonderful exhibition. Going back to the previous conversation as your audience who experienced the work just over 1 hour ago, it was a glimpse of a familiar place that I may call home. And you opened that space for me to feel it for 5 minutes. But the clock there that you left in there, suddenly it made it valid experience. So the time told me I'm there. So if that clock wasn't there, maybe I could just feel it as a virtual, but the clock was a validation for my presence in that space. So it wasn't virtual for a moment, it was actual and it was real. And I really enjoyed that experience very much. My question, it's about you navigate between and within many spheres, geographic, conceptual, and also disciplinary, traditional material as well as new material. What are the challenges for you as an artist to navigate between different spaces? How you overcome these challenges, and what are the benefits of this navigation between these spaces?
It's very stressful. I mean, every time I do that, I swear myself why I did that. It's like, you know, I mean, working with clay, I mean, you are in a studio, you know, I do everything I know, I can handle it. But then you work with a composer. I mean, I don't know how to talk about music. I just like, I can't even pretend. It was so difficult to, so I have to say my emotions to Sabo. I was like, you know, it should be like this, but I didn't know how to say that because I don't know the language of music, you know? So also digital medium is the same because I don't know how to work with VR or with digital modeling or anything. And poor Siavash has to teach me all the time, like, you know, this is how it works. And he was explaining everything in a very technical but understanding way. And then it has a very good side too, because of my background in painting and all the travels I had around Iran, I knew so much about the architecture, Iranian architecture, that I could see a lot of things that I can design, you know. So like regarding the light, I mean, these VR work, it seems we have light from outside. We have over 200 light source in this model, over 200. So, so we have to paint it. So a lot of light, my understanding of light helped a lot to designing the VR architecture understanding I have about the Iranian architecture. Also, composition. I mean, it's just so weird that how much the skills I got from painting or ceramic helped me to make this work much better. So it's good. I think I mean, there is a learning edge, which is also it's difficult. You spend a lot of time to learn and moving between, because you have a brain muscle that you have to train it to be prepared for the new medium when you're moving to a new medium. But I like the challenge. So.
Anyone else? I think we can take one more.
Hi, thank you so much for that. That was fascinating. Obviously, you are really inspired by Iran, the place and the way that the art is expressed and has expressed itself historically. I wonder, what do you think it is about that area that has produced this unique aesthetic that is quirky and weird and different.
I mean, this is my theory, but I think when Islam came to Iran, making sculptures was forbidden. And you have all these talented people that they used to make sculptures until the day before. And then suddenly you can't do that. And you have to take that talent and that love to somewhere. And I think that's architecture, Iranian architecture. I think Iranian architecture is the most diverse and experimental, monumental form of sculpture. And I remember when I was traveling around the country, I was like fascinated by different type of architecture. The routes I took from Isfahan to Yazd, there are two central cities in Iran, and I traveled and I visited 5, 6 cities. There is no two mosques similar to each other in these cities. Like every city, they had their own different design and so sophisticated. And I think that's important. I think that's very important. I remember I was in Khorasan, and it was a what they call Musalla, the place of pray for. So it's quite funny. We have a type of building that people, they go pray for rain. I mean, yeah, what the hell, right? It's amazing, yeah. So there is a building that people, they used to go to pray for rain, and the whole building was literally a massive gate and a tiny vault behind it. I mean, the whole building was just a gate. I mean, how amazing. And it built in 12th century. I mean, this is so creative. And I think, I mean, there is joyfulness in practicing architecture in this regard, that we don't see it until the modern era to see. I mean, it's really hard to see it even now. So I think that's the most important, fascinating things for me about the architecture in Iran.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. I think this was an incredible conversation, and we all learned a lot. It was wonderful listening to both of you. Thank you for your time.